What a game. Let's get just right into it. You know who these guys are. Joe, you're on the Lakers side. Dissect for me those dying moments with LeBron James giving up the ball to Danny Green and then Markieff Morris doing his best J.R. Smith impression.
Well, for the Lakers this game, their struggles really started once Anthony Davis went down in the first with that injury. We saw that's when they really started to get out of the rhythm. The defensive end was a little inconsistent for them there, and that's when Miami really began to take shots. They started to build that lead, Miami, but we saw the Lakers in the fourth begin to cut into that. The Lakers at one point, after KCP hit that clutch three from the corner, we actually thought the Lakers were in control at that point. But what a back and forth. It was just a mono versus mono matchup between LeBron and Jimmy Butler. I think we could all agree that was probably the best playoff game we've seen in months, if not the whole bubble. But besides that, like you said, a couple of mental lapses at the end in terms of Danny Green got the open look. I'm sure many Lakers fans would agree. It's not exactly the guy you want, but it was a good look, so you can't blame him for taking it. They got the offensive rebound, and then Markieff Morris does his best J.R. Smith impression, throws the ball out of bounds. Then where Tyler Hero goes on the other end, makes two clutch free throws, puts the Heat up three, of which they don't have timeouts. LeBron launches from half court, and now we're looking at a Game 6 on Sunday. Potential closeout game again, but I think the Lakers need to realize, hey, this is not going to come easy.
One last thing before I get to you, Nick. Should LeBron have somehow got himself to take the shot rather than give it up? Obviously, we did see him get double-teamed, get blitzed. That was likely going to happen. But, obviously, if Danny Green makes a shot, it's hailed as, I was chatting with Nick before, It's hailed as a great play. Do you think LeBron needs to step up there and take the shot? It's been a criticism of him across pretty much his entire career.
I'll tell you this, he's going to get scrutinized for not taking the shot, but you got to look at his situation. He had two people on him in Butler and Iguodala. So these are two of the best perimeter defenders that he have. And on top of that, Adebayo had his back pretty much turned, ready to help should LeBron decide to drive. So if that's the case, of course, that is what Eric Spoelstra is game planning for. He's like, hey, let's leave one of these guys open. LeBron's been on a tear lately. We'll live with one of these guys making a shot on the perimeter. We can't live with LeBron getting to the rim and either drawing a foul or finishing in contact. So while he'll get scrutinized, I still think he did the right thing. It's just up to Danny Green to make that shot.
Yeah, Danny Green. We won't dissect that any further, but we will dissect the Miami Heat. They deserve a lot of time. Nick Bam Boylan, Jimmy Butler. We could say his name for 3 minutes, and it still wouldn't be enough credit for what that man did. He is absolutely gargantuan.
He was massive, guys. I think the two key factors for Miami really preventing the Lakers from hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy tonight were always going to be their three-point shooting, and another Jimmy Butler masterpiece was one on the cards, and yes, it was tonight. He started off, on fire, 22 points, 6 boards and 6 assists, and this is just in the first half. He looks like, yep, this is a game for him. Hit that big three at the end of the first half to close things out, and really, I guess, remind people that, hey guys, I know the trophy's here and whatnot, but there is still a game to play tonight. And he made sure that he kept hanging around, really, as they've done quite often in this series. They just refused to stay down. The Lakers, would throw a punch and the Heat would get one back. Butler was massive. I mean, we started to see the fatigue set in at the end. He played 47 minutes tonight. It was just nuts. He just looked. It was a couple of drives before he went to the free throw line where he had to sort of pause and suck in the big one sort of on the sideline there. It's just like, yep, it was pretty exhausted, but he came back into it in that fourth quarter. He finished with 35 points, a perfect 12 of 12 from the free throw line, including some super clutch ones in the fourth quarter, 12 boards, 11 assists, and 5 steals. Like, you can't say too much about – you can't say enough really about Butler's performance tonight. Him and LeBron just went at each other, throwing haymakers left and right, and Butler came out on top. Another massive factor to the game, as much as we saw Butler, go the distance, it had to be about, well, who from Miami was going to step up. And to Duncan Robinson, probably his best game of the postseason, finished with 26 points, 7 of 13 from downtown. He also had 5 rebounds, and he played some pretty important possessions on defense. Even though we saw on that last play when LeBron was driving, Duncan came over. He didn't do anything major to disrupt LeBron going up, but he came over and at least made LeBron know that he was there, and he kept. I think that's one thing that I've been personally really impressed from Robinson. You know, we've talked about his deficiencies at the defensive end, but he's not one to shy away from taking matchups. He keeps having a crack, despite, you know, what athletic, I guess, you know, sort of qualities he might not lack in terms of lateral quickness as a defender. He keeps having a go, and that really made a difference tonight. Aside from just some bonkers threes that he was getting, he just doesn't stop running. You know, we hear comparisons to Klay Thompson all the time, or Joe Harris. These guys who just keep running around screens all day, and it's exhausting. And, you know, he's going to get some of those shots to go, and you got to live with it. The other part for Miami I thought was really good, particularly from the start of the game. I thought their shot selection was much better. We talked about in the previous contest that some of their shots, they were really hunting the three ball a lot and passing up good looks at the rim in favor of a potentially poorer shot from downtown. That wasn't the case tonight. I think they took what the Lakers gave them early, and that was, you know, some stuff inside in the mid-range with Jimmy. Obviously, that shot for him falling with quite a good amount of regularity. And also, I thought another player who really helped their offense get going was Kendrick Nunn in the first half. He finished with 14 points. 11 of those came in the first half, and he was really successful in the pick and roll in getting things going with Butler in that sort of smaller pick and roll setting. Not the best game from Bam Adebayo tonight. He was someone who, despite having 13 points, came on 5 of 12 shooting, and his finishing inside left a lot to be desired. And it was something that the broadcasters talked about right throughout the game, is that he needed to go out with more aggressiveness. He had a couple of blown dunks, which could have proved costly at the end, given the close margin of the game. But he did enough there. Hopefully, he's a little bit better off for the following game in seeing if they can force a Game 7. And Tyler Hero as well. Not his best game again, but as Joe mentioned, went to the line and hit the biggest free throws of his career to ensure that Miami live to see another day. And we're going to get, another game in the series.
Game 6, baby. Who would have thought that it wasn't me making a Joe Harris reference on this podcast? Joe, what's your prediction for Game 6 before we end this one?
Game 6, assuming Dragic is still out, I'd still have to go with the Lakers, but I think we all agree that by no means is this series a given.
Not at all. Nick?
My initial pick was Lakers in 6, and although if Butler can come back and do something like that again, I'm probably still going to have to go with the Lakers in 6, and they're taking this one home.
We shall see. It's going to be an epic one. Make sure you stay tuned on iTunes, YouTube, all streaming platforms for these recaps and more OTG content.